This project seems almost as recklessly insane as building the National Railway. We are shooting a high-definition TV special as we ride the rail from Vancouver to Halifax. We want you to experience it. It's one of the great journeys in this world.
Ooh, the whistle blows, all aboard, it's time to go. Roll, roll, the wheels go round, riding on the railway.
What makes it so memorable? Hi there. Is it the geography and the immensity of Canada? The history? All the people you meet on the train? Or the peaceful pace of travel?
So raise a glass for the engineer, riding on the railway, and all the railway riders here. Riding on the railway, the countryside we gaze upon, riding on the railway, and the silver rails we're riding on. Riding on the railway. Raise your glass again and say a toast to the crew aboard today. One for every old rail hand in the mighty trains of this mighty land. Woo-hoo, the whistle blows, all aboard, it's time to go. Roll, roll, the wheels go round, riding on the railway. Woo-hoo, the whistle blows, all aboard, it's time to go. Roll, roll, the wheels go round, riding on the railway. Riding on the railway, riding on the railway.
Join us for Canada's greatest ride. This is one of the most beautiful cities in the world, nestled between the high snow-capped peaks of the Coast Mountains and the deep blue water of the Georgia Strait. It has the largest port in Canada and is the gateway to the Pacific. But today, it is the point of departure for an epic journey across the second largest country in the world. We're about to embark on an adventure, hopping on the train in Vancouver now. We're going to take it all the way to Halifax, 6,000 kilometers or more, all the way to the other ocean, and find out why this is still Canada's greatest ride. But this is no ordinary train. This is the Canadian, a legendary line of stainless steel trains with a storied past. It runs 3 times a week from Vancouver to Toronto and back, a transcontinental journey that takes 3 days and 3 nights. Getting a train across this huge country is still a massive enterprise 130 years after the very first run. Behind the scenes, preparations have just begun. Via Rail maintenance crews worked meticulously to get their train ready for the 6,000-kilometer journey, starting, I'm very happy to report, with a thorough inspection of the wheels and brakes. Fundamental to the safe and smooth operation of the train are the massive stainless steel wheels. Each car has 4 sets, weighing almost 2 tons each. Via Rail staff scrutinize every wheel for tiny imperfections like bumps or grooves, which can cause friction, and that affects the ride. But more importantly, defects also increase the risk of a derailment. So if they find anything, they simply shave it away. And on this trip, there is a special piece of equipment that's never been on this train before. A high-definition camera has been mounted on the front of the locomotive to capture every inch of this journey. The train will be 19 cars long, not counting the 2 locomotives at the front. It will include dining cars, sleeping cars, and coach cars, which is Via's regular passenger service without the beds. While the maintenance crews look after all the mechanical preparations, the service attendants focus their attention on the inside details.
How's it going?
Good.
This isn't my normal job.
But there's still a lot to do, so I'll wait in the lounge with the rest of the passengers. The team will spend the 12 hours prior to departure cleaning each car from top to bottom. They'll make sure the train is fully loaded with enough supplies to last until the first major stop, which is 2 days from now.
There's lots of work because once the train leaves Vancouver,
none of the supplies are replenished until they get to Winnipeg. So all the linens, all the equipment, we make sure that we have enough staff, of course.
Okay, welcome everybody. This will be our briefing for train number 2, Vancouver.
Chris Hardy is responsible for making sure the service on board the train runs seamlessly.
Turn your radios on for radio check.
Hardy heads up Via Rail's team of service attendants, who used to be called porters. There are about 20 of them to take care of more than 80 passengers from around the world who are each expecting the trip of a lifetime.
Richard, your section will be the 210 back to and including dining car 8501.
During the trip, the service attendants work about 18 hours a day for 3 days in a row.
In case of an emergency, what is our Via code words for an on-train emergency?
Chris makes sure that his service team is ready for anything.
Thanks, let's go, guys.
Because what lies ahead is an ambitious transcontinental adventure. All we need now is the actual train. It's now just before 5 p.m. The supplies have been loaded, the service staff's been briefed, but there's still one important thing left for Via's maintenance crew to take care of. Right now, our train is sitting in 2 separate sections at opposite ends of the Vancouver station. And while the crew work on the train, the rest of us passengers wait patiently for the boarding call.
So what are we doing now, Jared? Just tell me what we're up to. What are we doing?
We are taking this part of the train, move it over onto the other part of the train to make it all together.
One big long train.
Number 2, ready to depart Vancouver. You'll see when we get around the curve. Pacific Central, Via Station. Via 2, about 10 to a joint. And 15 feet. Via 2, 10 feet. 5 feet. Via 2, that will do.
Once the train is in one piece, senior service attendant Dennis Alves does his last-minute walkthrough before welcoming the passengers on board. He's worked the trains for most of his life, and he considers it home.
When I talk to my passenger, I say, welcome to my house for a few days. Welcome to my way of life. So it is a way of life, not a job. If it's a job, then you get to, it don't work. If it's a way of life, then it works because you like people coming to visit you. It's a way of life.
At last, the time has come for the passengers to board. This is so exciting. I love trains. So, apparently I've got a really good room, which I'm not unhappy about, because mostly rooms on trains are pretty puny. This is right. Hi there.
Hi, Ms.
Hey,
Pringle.
Jean-Francois.
Welcome aboard. My name is Jean-Francois.
Are you looking after me?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I will
Which one are we? Are you?
I will direct you to your room.
Perfect.
Can I take care of your bag?
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm going to let you go
Okay.
first and hang on to the right.
Yep.
And all the way to the end.
Oh, I see, yeah. Hello.
Yeah, I'm treated with the royal treatment. The special
I am getting the
room.
royal treatment. I don't think this is, well, you know, who the hell's going to complain? Not me. Look at this. I got flowers and everything. This is huge.
This is our Romance by Rail setup.
Romance by rail
Right,
only.
as to where we have on suited 2 rooms.
Whoops, so they're yelling at you? We're just
Yes.
about to leave, eh?
Yes.
So, but normally then someone would have this room. It's like a honeymoon suite.
That's correct. That's correct. So welcome to the Lucky Car 213.
Yeah, that's really good. Hold on. I think I found the shower. No,
you
it's I found the
haven't.
toilet.
Found the toilet.
It's pretty cute. Okay, that's not bad.
Wish you a very pleasant journey. Thanks again for traveling with us.
I'll be seeing a lot of you. 5:32 p.m. Only 2 minutes behind schedule, Via Rail's train number 2 pulls out of Vancouver's Pacific Central Station. I think we should give a moment's thought to William Van Horn, the larger-than-life character who helped build the Canadian Pacific Railway and who decided that the terminus of the railway should be here and that it should be called Vancouver. Needless to say, for him and for me, there's no turning back. Riding the rails across Canada has been called one of the greatest journeys in the world. We can look out the window and see the blue Pacific, the Rockies, the Continental Divide, the prairies, the Canadian Shield and Boreal Forest, big cities, historic communities, the Maritimes, and finally, Halifax Harbour, more than 6,000 kilometers from where we began. But what makes this trip such an extraordinary adventure? I'm determined to find out.
Good evening, ladies.
I'm anxious to explore Via Rail Train number 2 because this isn't just any train. This is the Canadian, which recently celebrated its 50th anniversary.
Looks good.
The Canadian was originally built in the 1950s for the Canadian Pacific Railway as the flagship of the transcontinental fleet.
How are you? Oh, we're leaving.
Yes.
Oh, this is so cool. This is great.
Today, the Canadian is run by Via. Those sleek stainless steel cars were the last word in high-tech train technology when they were built.
This is the game car.
Please consult the attendants and identify the emergency features of your car.
Hey, where's the viewing car, the dome car?
You're in the car.
Oh, good. Oh, this is a fun car?
Yeah, this is the activity car, and this is also the dome car.
Oh, cool.
For your safety, all carry-on bags must be stored in
There's
the
a drinking
overhead
lounge back here.
We have beer
Ah,
houses, so please do remind
this is what I want, eh?
commitment to the environment.
Let's go up here.
Please
It's your own private car.
I got my own car. Oh, that's great.
ask your attendant for the nearest location of your recycling container.
The outside of the cars still have that classic look, but the interiors have been completely refurbished and modernized.
Where are you guys from? England. No, Australia, sorry. No, where? New Zealand?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's just shocking of me, terrible of me not to recognize the Kiwi accent. Where in New Zealand are you from?
Just down at Christchurch.
Oh, really?
Kaiapoi.
Ah.
20k north.
My daughter was there last fall and said if she didn't have a job to come home to, she never would have come back from New Zealand.
Oh, yeah.
Just loved it.
This is bigger and better.
Well, no, I don't know if bigger is better, but it is bigger.
Since traveling across the second largest country in the world by rail takes more than 5 days, many people like to break it up by stopping along the way.
How far are you going, to Toronto or?
At this stage.
And then you might go all the way to the ocean.
We're going to Formula One car racing at Montreal.
Oh, are you? Oh, that's fabulous.
Formula One car racing.
Oh, how good. No, that's really fun, the Formula One stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. So did you just fly in from New Zealand
No,
to Vancouver?
We've done a cruise.
Then
We've done a cruise.
did the Rockies and then Alaska cruise.
Where was the cruise?
Oh,
To Alaska.
Oh, you've done the Alaska cruise. Oh my gosh.
Wonderful.
Oh, that would be really magnificent. Up the Inside Passage, I've done that. It's really beautiful. How was your weather?
Good.
Hot. Really hot. We did dog sledding up in the mountains.
Oh, what fun! You guys are adventuresome.
We are. Yes, it was very hot.
Oh, yeah.
Lovely.
So this is a great long adventure.
One of them.
Yeah.
When you travel across the country on a train, you feel like you have all the time in the world. It's relaxing. You look out the window, you think, you read, you talk to other passengers. In fact, that is one of the greatest pleasures of the ride, getting to meet and chat with people from all around the world who are taking this journey with you.
Well, I'll be bugging you along the way. I hope you don't mind just sitting and chatting and hearing about things. Horse?
Yeah.
Your name is Horse?
That'll do for this.
Well, I'll never forget that.
First section anyway.
And then when we get to be really good friends, you can tell me your other name.
Oh yeah, we'll probably be Mr. Horse then.
It's Mr. Horse to you. And Mrs. Horse?
Usually.
Yeah.
I call it old grey mare.
We've just left the West Coast on a railway journey across the country. I'm on board the Canadian, the historic train that travels back and forth between Vancouver and Toronto 3 times a week. And while the track is certainly well worn, no trip is ever the same. Each is its own adventure, with its own stories and surprises along the way. One thing I can expect is the constant sight of incredibly vast and varied Canadian landscapes.
Well, it's never so beautiful just as you're leaving cities. I always, the rails around, outskirts of towns and downtowns are always so unattractive. And then, boom, it'll be great in the mountains.
But until we get there, I might as well enjoy Via Rail's first-class service.
Be careful.
Please have your IDs ready, okay?
Which IDs? Which IDs? And under 17.
Can you hear from us?
Sure. Oh my gosh. Hey, Horse. Cheers.
Here's
Hello, Mrs. Horse. Cheers. Cheers.
2 or 3 days.
This is your first seminar?
It's Canadian champagne. It kicks a bit.
Champagne, or more precisely, sparkling Canadian wine, toasts beginnings, the start of an adventure, success.
A way nicer way to see the country than driving the Trans-Canada
I'm
Highway.
really happy for all the tourists on the train from all over the world, including Horse and Mrs. Horse, to see my country, especially this way, along the spine of Canada. I'm very proud of it, and I can't wait to get out of the suburban grottiness and into the wilderness. I can't wait for the mountains. But even though you're always full of anticipation on a train for what you'll see next and for where you're headed, it's also enveloping and engrossing in the here and now, what's right outside your window.
Mandarin orange and ham.
Mm-hmm.
And shrimp. And cream cheese.
Which ones taste the best? You got a lot of.
I personally like the ham and orange.
That looks good, actually. There's a lot of work gone into this one. Look at all those little swirly things. I'll try one of these. Thank you very much. I got a napkin here. Thanks. That's a nice way to start.
Smoked salmon, cream cheese.
Great. Heading east. A long way.
When Canada officially became a country on July 1st, 1867, it stopped at the Manitoba border. BC was still part of Great Britain, and thousands of kilometers away past the Rocky Mountains, BC demanded a railway to join the country. Those ribbons of steel were not only supposed to forge a country, but keep the Americans out. How crazy is that? Well, it turns out not that crazy at all. The railway made Canada.
No, I'm trying to figure out how to exercise. Horace, what do you think? You've got your shorts on. Are you jogging or?
No.
You're just eating and drinking.
We're not drinking and driving right now, so that's the drinking gear.
I wear my shorts all the year round, so.
I won't, thank you.
Oh, yeah. That's,
Yeah.
That'll look good.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think he's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
How long have you been working on the train?
About 9 years now.
Really?
Oh.
Did they pick you for your charm and personality?
I suppose, yeah. Yeah. But
Because you have to do a lot of like people stuff.
and a lot of smiling, yes. Yeah. But no, it's a fun job. It started off as a summer job. I'm still.
Must be doing something right.
Yeah.
Right.
And tomorrow I'll point out the mountains to you guys. Okay.
Yeah.
I know a little bit about the Rockies tomorrow, so I'll point out the mountains and I'll talk a little bit about geography and vegetation.
Will we see a bear?
Maybe after a ball of the champagne. No, I'm kidding.
Haven't seen a bear.
We're ready to talk about these bears you got over here.
Yeah.
Are you sure you got bears?
Yes, we have black bears, grizzly bears, polar bears.
We've seen photos of them. We haven't seen one.
I saw a white bear on my first date, a bear behind.
Oh.
His.
Well, let's hope we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, you might see some wildlife.
We thought we'd see a lot more bears. It's been a bit of a shortage, I think.
Well, you never know. They may get a little shy, or maybe they came out early. I mean, anytime you go anywhere looking for wildlife, you can never be sure you'll see it.
Like the Australians say when you go to Australia, they think they're going to see kangaroos hopping all over the roads. And
No,
they're just
and
not there. They're out way out in the bush. So I suppose this is much the same.
They're hiding.
We're certainly doing that.
Traveling across Canada by train is not only one of the best ways to see the country, it is one of the top 5 great journeys of the world, according to National Geographic. It's a trip of a lifetime for many people, including me.
But I've never gone across the whole country.
No.
I've never gone coast to coast on the train. I think this is, a Canadian fantasy.
Oh, Dave, I'll have to give you
I think, Chris, you're a dangerous man.
Horse has a very big thirst. Can you see his skin cracking? As his skin cracks, you know he's drying out.
Yeah.
I'm not driving tonight, so I'm fine.
I think I'm great right now, thanks. Sure.
Thank you. He says, what are they doing with the clickety-clack? There's no clickety-clack.
Well, there's no clickety-clack on this one either, eh? I think it's like a quarter of a mile or something before you get a click. So there is no more of that, except maybe in Europe on the older rails, you still get that sound. But in this one, you don't have that. But it's such a nice thing when you're sleeping.
Boo.
You were scared. Don't.
You will scare them. People will think, oh my gosh, Santa Claus is riding on the Canadian. I think it's probably just important to mention as we head out of Vancouver, which we sort of passed through in a shot, obviously in the Great Train Station, and it was the starting point for the Great Journey. What a spectacular city it is. And this does not go unnoticed or unmentioned. It is a great city to visit. It'll be out of this world for the 2010 Olympics, and great restaurants and hotels, and all the way up to Whistler as well. So we're sorry we didn't get to spend more time in Vancouver, but we just out there and hopped on the train, and now we're heading east. I thought he just asked for one beer.
Oh, well.
So this is your selection, eh?
Zip.
Are you going to give the lesson in Canadian beer?
I'm not really a
Sitting next to
drinker.
him, it's like, how come that people will say, why isn't horses wife
Yeah,
with them instead of-
exactly. Now,
yeah.
Horse, I just want to give you a few pointers on beer. Now, we are on the Canadian, so that wouldn't be a bad one.
Yeah.
These are the sort of classic ones. This is an Ontario one, Sleeman's Cream, eh? And there's a local Vancouver one. That's a Granville Island honey lager. And then we've got a couple of Winnipeg ones, the Fort Garry Pale Ale. And, hold on.
That's the dark.
Oh, Fort Garry Dark.
I like dark beer.
I like dark beer. I like dark beer. All right then. Well then, that's for you. We got the frosty glass here.
Yeah.
I thought you'd open it with your teeth, maybe.
No, that one wasn't quite so tight.
Yes, thank you. That'd be lovely, thank you.
Like the color of that?
Driving tonight, so
Yes.
It's just about the same colour as Guinness.
Yeah. Yum.
Nothing wrong with Guinness. especially when they get stuff
Yes,
in
you've
the
got
water.
real beer expert on tonight, anyway.
Aye?
Yes, the real beer experts on.
Is that right? I don't know about that.
How is it?
I think we'll probably have a few on the train. Yeah.
So the Fort Garry's okay.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Tastes good.
We should be toasting Sir John A. Macdonald. I'm grateful he brought BC into Canada. I'm grateful for this transcontinental train. And I'm grateful that this great adventure is just beginning and I have the whole country ahead of me. It would never occur to me to ask, when do we get there?
Extra CN 5359 north, over.
Riding the rails east from Vancouver to Halifax, we've only just begun our journey. We're just nearing New Westminster, which was the first capital of British Columbia. The very first transcontinental train stopped here until Van Horn pushed the railway through to Vancouver. Now a trio of bridges stretch across the Fraser River, connecting New Westminster to Surrey. While we cross the New Westminster Rail Bridge, I'll continue my tour of the train.
So we've got to just go through the cars. We're going through everybody's sleeping cabins. Alrighty. It's like an Agatha Christie novel. Yeah. We're having to head like quite far ahead to the front of the car. We've in fact got our own cars, which are a little further back there because there's about 10 of us on this train. All right. Somebody said this is how you get your exercise because I'm worried about getting, too fat, just sitting and eating. But if you walk the whole length of the train, it's a quarter of a mile. So this may be a good idea. There's the shower. I guess I've got one of those. I guess that's what the shower looks like. That's not bad. Yeah, we'll have to share one though. All right, we're just going through a dining car. Hi there.
How are you doing?
Just fine. How are you?
Good.
How was dinner?
Good. This is just a coffee shop.
Oh, this is a coffee shop.
This is for the comfort class
Yeah.
front, which are the coaches which you'll be going through right now.
Oh, that's a comfort class.
Yeah, that is where you just sit like a bus.
No beds.
No beds, only you have a pillow. You get a pillow.
Cool.
And then I have the cook there, Bruno.
Mm-hmm.
He's cooked for me. And then you have a takeout behind there where you sell, like if you come for a coffee or a sandwich.
That looks not bad. Hi, Bruno.
Hi, how's it going?
You're making some hamburgers and stuff?
Just cooking away here.
It's hard to keep your balance in there, right?
You get used to it after 6 or 7 years.
Is that how long you've been doing it?
Yeah, six summers now, yeah.
Got a couple of quesadillas on the grill.
Yeah, a couple of quesadillas for the kids.
That looks good. How thrilling to be able to follow along the mighty Fraser River, which was named after Simon Fraser of the Northwest Company, who first explored it in 1808. The Fraser is the most productive salmon river in the world and is the longest river in BC, flowing from the Rockies 1,400 kilometers to the Pacific. That river and the history of BC are inseparable. Traveling east toward Halifax, we have a clear view of the track ahead.
PRTC VO2.
Yeah, okay. Passenger via 6412 East. Could I meet you channel 5, please? We'll get the TGO acknowledged.
We're pulling into Mission, a small town in the Fraser Valley, which has the distinction of being the site of Canada's first train robbery. It was on these tracks that 60-year-old Billy Miner, who was immortalized in the movie The Grey Fox, robbed CPR train number 1 on September the 10th, 1904. He's thought to be the very first person to say, "Hands up!" And he escaped across the Fraser River with his accomplices and about $7,000 in gold dust, a $50,000 bond, and almost $1,000 in cash. We're now chugging along on the part of the original Canadian Pacific Line that linked Canada for the first time back in 1885. We're near Harrison Mills in the BC interior and following along the north shore of the Fraser River. Sitting and looking at it's certainly a lot easier than when Simon Fraser first tried to paddle it, or when this track was being laid, which was treacherous.
Oh, cool. There's the Fraser River, so which we're following along. This is the original old CPR route, because the way from Kamloops out to Vancouver, the natural way was down the Fraser River Canyon. But, I mean, not that it was easy, the blasting and I guess the building was, oh God, doesn't it look gorgeous with the light off it? So we've seen a lot of logs and everything coming down there. That's wonderful. We've got a lovely woman who's joined us. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Where are you from?
I'm from Toronto.
Yeah? What are you doing on the train?
I'm just coming back to Toronto from, I was out in Vancouver for business for the last week, so I don't like to fly, so my company said, take the train, so I did. So I'm on my way home.
Well, the menu looks pretty good. Have you here? I'll give you this mic. We've got a choice of fish chowder or mushroom fusion soup. Hi there. Oh, hi to you. Or Pacific rim salad. And then you've got a beef tenderloin, blackened salmon, duck breast, mushroom ravioli. So
I had to teach her the difference.
that's good. They've got cheeses and all sorts of things. So the menu actually looks pretty good for dinner tonight. I'm thinking salmon. I mean, how can you be on the West Coast and not have blackened salmon?
With dinner on its way, I'm going to sit back and watch the countryside roll by. But the view ahead isn't so clear because of a collision with more than a few bugs. Our crew takes advantage of the brief stop to wipe the camera clean.
The bugs are sticky, even with the washer that we rigged here. That's good.
Yeah, I can't see it. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're done.
Okay.
Okay, let's get this train on the road. Tracks.
As the sun begins to set, we approach Yale, BC, which was founded as a Hudson's Bay fort in 1848. The town is one of the oldest in the region, and it also sits at the southern entrance to the spectacular Fraser Canyon. Once you get into the rhythm of the railway, you start to see things that you would miss completely if you were driving or on a plane. That's just one of the reasons why Lee Kenderdine, my dinner companion, refuses to fly.
So you took the train out to Vancouver from Toronto?
Both ways.
Why?
Well, I'm not a big fan of flying, and so I thought, what's the only other option? And the train, and it's a beautiful way to see your country. So.
And how was
great.
it?
It was fabulous, fabulous. It's 3 days, and it seemed like that. I mean, I thought I'd be so bored sitting in my little roomette, but I mean, you come here twice a day for meals, 3 times if you want breakfast. And there's
meals
activities.
good? You like them?
The meals are fabulous.
Could you sleep?
I had some trouble sleeping the first night. I guess I just wasn't used to the motion. But by the second night, I was sleeping like a baby, and the beds are so comfy, and it's very cozy.
Did you leave the shade
I
up?
left it open the whole time.
Yeah?
It's nice to wake up in the middle of the night and kind of take a look and see where you are. And the sun seems to rise really early, and just to watch the sun come up and see the scenery and wonder where you are.
What did you love most about the scenery?
Northern Ontario was gorgeous. I used to live in Calgary, so I'd seen the mountains, but I hadn't been back in a while, so going through there was lovely. And following the Fraser River into Vancouver was just stunning. And the drops were really, you know, you're kind of holding on like this, but it was gorgeous. I took a whole roll of film on the way out, and I changed my camera on the way back, so I have a whole roll of film ready to go.
And you just came up for a business meeting and then hop back on the train and go back. And you didn't think, oh, how boring, I just did this?
Well, I did it first. But to be honest, I was so looking forward to getting back on the train today because I had such a great time on the way out. Everybody at work was like, oh God, you know, 3 days, 3 days. It's fabulous. I get so much work done. And I mean, who gets to see this, you know? It's a once in a lifetime. It's fabulous.
So what's your favorite part? What makes this the greatest ride?
My favorite part, I think, would be you're driving through, or you're railing through the middle of nowhere, and then all of a sudden there's like this cluster of homes. And you're like, who are these people who live in the middle of who knows where, in the middle of our country? And you gotta wonder, like, what do these people do? Like, where do they live? Where do they go? Like, I'd go crazy without like a Shoppers Drug Mart around the corner. And these people live in the middle of nothing.
Well, that's the cool thing. I mean, you get that a little bit in any way you travel, but in a train, because you're so close, to see this glimpse of people's lives. And you sort of flash in their window, or you just look at them, or the kids wave on the way by, and you think, who are these people? What are their lives? What are they doing? Where they come from? And then they're gone.
Yeah, because I live in Toronto. I mean, but then you see these people in like a cluster of 5 homes, nothing else around for who knows how long. And it just makes you think.
Thank you. It's nice talking to you. I'll see you at dinner tomorrow night, too.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
It's 3 meals a day.
More people fly and drive the country now than take the train. But the train has a stronger grip on our imagination. You can love trains, and there are many people who do. Chris Tapanila is a rail fan from Toronto who knows just about everything there is to know on the subject.
How did this obsession begin?
Well, I think it was brought on by my family. My grandfather worked building trains, and my uncle, who was a lawyer, just had models of trains all around his house. And I guess that's where it begins, because that's where the mystery starts.
Well, here we are on this little stretch, which is part of the original CPR, you know, that was built, I guess, and finished in 1885. I mean, how does that just give you shivers thinking, here I am, this is the real deal?
I think it's pretty cool, and also to think that he was here, my great-grandfather-in-law was here, you know, building the tunnels, and also you got to think about all the people who went through it and didn't come back.
Despite the deaths and the overwhelming natural odds of building it, the railway was a fundamental link that forged the country, bringing the provinces and the former British colonies together. And they did it 5 years ahead of schedule. For British Columbia, it was a condition of confederation.
But you think, what a great thing, actually, that BC had said, you better give us a railway or we're not coming in.
Yeah, well.
And that the people there said, yeah, we want to be part of Canada, which they did by a vast majority, that they'd actually polled or the equivalent of that instead of becoming part of the U.S.
part of having the railway connecting all these different communities all along through the prairies that were isolated and only really reachable by water or on horseback. You know, that unified the country and kept it together and still keeps it together.
But we're probably actually not all that far from Craigalatchie right now, which is where the last spike was driven.
Craigalatchie is the place in the Rockies where the railway was officially completed in 1885. It was named after a village in Scotland, the ancestral home of Sir George Stephen, the first president of the Canadian Pacific Railway.
You said they picked the name Craigalatchie. They knew that's what they were going to call this place?
Yes, now that was pre-decided because a few of the investors were Scottish and had originated from a place where the Clan Grant was, that was their birthplace. And the saying, "Stand fast, Craigalatchie," had a lot of things in common with how this railway was built because it was against the odds. It took a long time. There was a prime minister fell out of power and then came back into power because of it. And they all had no money through the entire process and still had no money at the end.
Yeah.
And yet they did all this for the health of the country.
Well, there are people who argue, and I guess, not unreasonably, that November 7th, 1885, which was when the last spike was driven at Craigalatchie, could be more of a birthday of Canada than July the 1st, 1867. Now, for a guy who loves this stuff so much, have you ridden this before?
I have, from Sudbury, Ontario to Saskatoon to visit my grandparents on my father's side, and it was one of the most memorable trips of my life. It just left such an impression on me. I was probably 8 years old when it happened. Yeah. I mean, it's huge.
I've never gone through the Rockies in a train, and I can't wait tomorrow morning to see Mount Robson and go through Jasper. And
oh yeah, well, and for me too. I mean, I'm seeing all this freight stuff along the line, and everybody else is going, oh, so what? And I'm like, oh, this is great. And we saw a coal train back there, and I'm like, well, you don't see those out in Ontario. So.
Time for bed, honey. The coal trains are getting you way too excited. Thank you. We'll talk tomorrow again. You can tell me more.
Calling over. Yeah, this is the coach here, Brad. Hey, house case will be coming up here in about 5 or 6 minutes on the right-hand side. There might be just enough light to catch that. Okay, thanks, guys.
Okay, SSA coach, SSA Jet, head over.
Go ahead, Pierre.
So in trying to figure out how this is Canada's greatest ride, I'm thinking, what are my expectations? I mean, I can't wait. Quite frankly, I'm exhausted, so I can't wait to go to sleep. But I think the idea of waking up in the middle of nowhere, some little town in another province, by the morning we'll probably be in Alberta, we'll be in the Rockies, we'll be close to Jasper. So the geography, plays, always, I think, the hugest role in the scenery and what I'm hoping to see. The history and reading about that is hugely appealing too as a Canadian, and getting a more heartfelt sense of that and what people went through to build this country and the railway. Now, meeting Horace already, a few of the people, maybe it's that. Maybe it's, sitting and having a nice chat with somebody, or the peacefulness of it. I think what is also lovely is that it forces you to go slowly while speeding you through the country. So, I don't know. I haven't figured out which one is the most appealing yet.
But the good news is I can sleep on it. We've got at least 4 more days and thousands of kilometers ahead of us.
And so to bed, as Samuel Pepys would say. I'm actually really looking forward to this. Sleeping on a train is so cool, and I'm actually totally exhausted because it's been a long day. But anyway, come and see this room, though. I'm in a Romance by Rail special, only by myself. Look, they've got the champagne and the flowers and the chocolates and the whole... Look at this comfy quilt. Look, what's out there? The Fraser River Canyon or something? Oh, my God. See you in the morning. We'll be in the Rockies.
raise a glass for the engineer, riding on the railway, and all the railway riders here. Riding on the railway, the countryside we gaze upon, riding on the railway, and the silver rails we're riding on. Riding on the railway. Raise your glass again and say a toast to the crew aboard today. One for every old rail hand in the mighty trains of this mighty land. Woo-hoo, the whistle blows, all aboard, it's time to go. Roll, roll, the wheels go round, riding on the railway. Woo-hoo, the whistle blows, all aboard, it's time to go. Roll, roll, the wheels go round, riding on the railway. Riding on the railway, riding on the railway.